It was back in the 1980s that the Bharatiya Janata Party began proposing simultaneous elections. In fact, the party had this idea in their manifesto for the 1984 elections as part of a 11-point electoral reform. Atal Bihari Vajpayee tried pushing the idea in the late 1990s, early 2000s when he was the Prime Minister, but hit a dead end. In 2010, BJP leader L.K. Advani said, "Elections at different times, quote-unquote, is not good for the health of our polity." Cut to 2024, the idea has moved one step forward. The Modi cabinet on Wednesday gave an approval to the proposal of one nation, one election. The approval was granted after a high-level panel's report, which was headed by former President Ramnath Kovind, was presented. The bill is now likely to be tabled in the winter session of Parliament. So what does this idea try to do? And is this idea really feasible? Hello and welcome to Simply Put. I am Shubham Chohan. Let's get started. So as the name suggests, the idea on paper is fairly straightforward. The centre and state elections should be held simultaneously and ultimately urban and rural local bodies, which is basically your municipalities and gram panchayats. It effectively means that if you are a voter, you cast your vote for electing members for all tiers of the government at or around the same time. Now before we get to what the Kovind panel has proposed to do, here's how our electoral system is currently. Elections in India are generally supposed to be held every 5 years. In 1952, independent India had its first election. Now, a simultaneous election at that point wasn't by design, but because that was the natural starting point. So that meant the Lok Sabha and State Assembly elections all were held together. This synchronization continued till 1967, with one exception. In 1959, the Nehru government dismissed Kerala Chief Minister EMS Namboothiripad's government, and fresh elections were held in the southern state in 1960. Then the whole schedule went haywire in 1969. That was the time when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister, and in 1969 some state assemblies were dissolved where the Congress faced a setback. Since then, instability, defections, lack of majority in some states, and at the centre as well, has meant that the cycle of simultaneous elections was broken. In fact, of the 17 Lok Sabhas since 1952, 7 of them were dissolved ahead of schedule. At present, assembly elections in only Andhra, Odisha, Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim are held together with the Lok Sabha elections. If you look around the world, South Africa, Sweden and Germany either hold simultaneous elections regularly or have a mechanism in place to not break the cycle. But let's come back to India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself and the BJP has been a big proponent of holding simultaneous elections. Now here are the pros of this model that are being cited by the proponents. First, one nation, one election will save cost. According to certain reports, about 60,000 crore rupees was spent during the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. Now the proponents say because the elections will be held simultaneously, costs, that is right from machinery and manpower, everything will come down. Then, simultaneous elections would mean that parties won't be in campaign mode perpetually. Unlike now, where one Lok Sabha election just ended and 4 to 6 state elections are coming up in the next few months. Those in support say that elections at one point would just mean that focus can be on governance for the rest of the tenure of the government. And lastly, many say one nation, one election may boost voter turnout. Now, let's come to the flip side. First, to start with one nation, one election, you need to have a starting point, like a date where all the center and all states will come together and polling will happen on that particular time. Now, to do that, it would mean the tenure of some state assemblies will have to be either curtailed or elongated to meet that particular cutoff date. Now take a state like Kerala or West Bengal, for example. Now elections in these two states are due in 2026. If 2029 becomes the cutoff date for one nation, one election, which reports suggest could be the case, voters in these states could effectively be picking a chief minister for just 3 years. How fair would that be on the respective states and the voters, and the mandate that would be given to them, which ideally should be for 5 years? Next, the cost. The flip side to saving cost is the amount that would have to be incurred to conduct one nation, one election. Simultaneous elections would mean spending more on buying more EVMs, deploying more personnel, and spreading them across the length and breadth of the country. Congress leaders Shashi Tharoor and Praveen Chakravarti argue that one nation, one election would save 5,000 crore rupees a year, which they call insignificant. In fact, listen in to what S.Y. Qureshi, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India, had to say on this matter.
If the idea is to cut down expenditure, if I tell you some alternative suggestion, which is there is a cap on individual candidates' expenditure, whether MLA or MP. Like for MP, it is 95 lakhs. Now, but there is no cap on the expenditure which a political party spends on them. They can spend 10 crores, 20 crores. They cannot do it in England, UK, from where we borrowed the model. So, one simple suggestion, put a cap on political party that they will spend only an equal amount. From 60,000 crores, it will come down to 6,000 crores. This was in the government's hand, and a 30-second solution. Why have they not even considered it? I've written many times. Why have they? Have I not heard any comment on it anywhere? Because that puts a question mark on the sincerity of the proposal.
Third, on federalism, each state in India is complex and diverse. The population, demographics, voting patterns, issues, and even the political parties involved. Everything is different. Now, critics point out that clubbing all of them with the general elections raises the possibility of national issues taking center stage and local issues being sidelined. Something as basic as drainage or bad roads outside your home getting overshadowed. Because in a Lok Sabha, the impetus usually is on picking the Prime Minister of the country. So chances of our elections becoming presidential are high. And lastly, a basic question. What if a state or central government collapses in between due to whatever reason? Or there's a hung assembly or parliament? Currently, the rules are that once a government loses majority or no one is in a position to form the government, fresh elections have to be ordered. Now that would mean that schedules would be disturbed once again, and people would have to then pick a chief minister or a prime minister for the remainder of the term. And that term could be ranging from a couple of months to even some years. Now let's come to the Ramnath Kovind-led panel's report. An 18,000-page report was submitted in March 2024 by this panel to President Draupadi Murmu. The report says one nation, one election can be held in two phases. The first phase includes state and central elections together, and then municipality and local bodies within 100 days from that day. Now here's the catch. If that is the case, the two phases, doesn't it mean that local bodies are having a separate election? Because the whole exercise or machinery will have to be done separately and once again.
Because if you read the report, it says that simultaneous election means only the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha. So, which is about 5,000 people. And 30 lakh elected representatives of panchayat and local bodies are removed from this. What kind of simultaneous election then are you talking about? And the second recommendation, that the panchayat election will be held in after 100 days. Now, 100 days is neither here nor there. It is a separate election. It is not a simultaneous election. It's a separate election with the entire bandobast repeated. And the entire bandobast repeated within the 100 days means it's a huge exercise. It's the most difficult management event of the world, the biggest management event. Before you get over your fatigue, you are deployed again.
Now, the criticism of the idea is that it may influence voters' choice unfairly, favoring the ruling party. A study in 2015 by the IDFC Institute highlights a 77% chance that the winning political party or alliance will secure victories in both Lok Sabha and assembly elections when held simultaneously. If the elections are held 6 months apart, however, as per the study, only 61% of the voters choose the same party. As for the Election Commission of India, which is responsible for holding elections, they are in favor of the idea going as far back as 1983. So what next? As things stand, the Modi government faces a constitutional task of getting this proposal passed. The report says as many as 18 constitutional amendments are needed to pass the proposal. Now, a bill for One Nation, One Election will require a constitutional amendment, from the Representation of People's Act to allowing the tenures of state assemblies to be truncated. But here's the challenge. According to Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, for a bill proposing a constitutional amendment to sail through, not less than 2/3 of the members of that house present and voting must vote in favor of the bill. The total strength of the Lok Sabha is 543, which means the 2/3 mark is about 362 MPs. The NDA, despite having a simple majority with 272 in the Lok Sabha, is unlikely to reach that mark. That's because the BJP-led alliance has 294 MPs in the lower house, with BJP having 240 of its own, and then 14 of its allies, among them is TDP with 16 and JDU with 12 MPs. Even in Rajya Sabha, the NDA has a strength of 119, whereas the 2/3 majority mark is 163. So that means they would need support from across all political parties to get to that number. Reports say the BJP has tasked Rajnath Singh, Arjun Ram Meghwal and Kiran Rijiju to talk to the opposition and try and get their consensus on this proposal. Now, interestingly, as per the Kovind report, out of the 49, 32 political parties favored this proposal. Most of them were BJP allies. Parties like Aam Aadmi Party, Congress, and the Trinamool Congress have opposed this idea. A lot will hinge on how the government manages, if at all, to convert their long-standing push into reality. So should India have one nation, one election at all? Do let us know what you think in the comment section below.
Stay ahead with our cutting-edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.